I'm back here with none other than the very same Booray Perry. Booray, man, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going fantastic.
Finally, I can meet you in the flesh.
Yeah.
And I've realized you're actually three-dimensional.
I'm actually what to who?
Three-dimensional.
Thank you. 3 dimensional. We got a crowd of people in the, going into the expo behind us, so it's a little bit noisy out here. Yeah, but it's great to finally meet you. I've been on the show at least, twice now?
Yeah.
And there's a huge time difference between me being here and you being there. So it's always either like really late for one of us or really early for the other one.
Yeah.
And it's great to meet you in person.
So how's the show been for you so far?
Oh, I've never been to a bad Imaging USA. I mean, I'm usually pretty busy because we got the international photographic competition and I've got to do that and other things. But it's just the thing about coming to Imaging USA year after year is that at first it's all about education and your business and everything else, and you get the best stuff you want in the world. And then eventually it becomes about family reunion. Every time you come here, you can't walk 10 feet without running into somebody that you know, and I haven't seen you in forever. And at that point, you're stuck, you're trapped. You got to come every single year.
And it's interesting because no matter who I've been speaking to, everybody's been saying the same thing. It is about making connections, meeting old friends, reuniting. It's almost like a family reunion.
Yeah, very much so. But it's also a family reunion among people who you can call if suddenly you get a job and you don't know how to price it. But you do know Bob from Tennessee, who actually does nothing but this sort of job. And I met him at Imaging USA last year. So I'll call up Bob and say, Bob, how do I price this sort of thing? And Bob will say, well, this is what you want to think about. Or I've got a question about this flash, or I've got a question about how do I do this gig, or whatever. You'll meet someone at Imaging USA who does that better than you. And they are absolutely willing to help, And then, of course, you go into the expo and every vendor, every person that does anything with photography is in there. You get inspired just walking through the expo. I can't tell you how many times I've walked through the expo and seen a light and been like, I've never seen that light before. And suddenly I've got that light and I'm using it in a way that I hadn't even thought of.
You know what I found really interesting was the International Image Competition over the last few days. It was so different from anything I've ever seen in the UK. Yeah. Talk us through some of the differences, because I particularly love the kind of, head-to-head type of knockout.
I don't know the differences versus the UK because I've never competed in the UK, but I assume that it's very, very stuffy and there's no ice. Is that about right?
Pretty much.
Yes. Okay. The difference of the International Photographic Competition is a little bit different than some of the things we've done in the past, because we decided that we wanted to have a competition that was more fun, big prizes, and that, well, in America anyway, what competition does everybody follow and everybody loves it? And it's the NCAA tournament. It's the college basketball tournament every year. There's a big bracket system. You see what teams are going to play what teams. You try and figure out what team's going to advance until we finally get to the Sweet 16 and the Grade 8 and the Final Four, and then we've got a winner. And the anticipation and building the whole thing up is so much fun. Why can't we do that with photography?
For the European listeners and viewers, it's exactly like the World Cup.
Yeah, there you go. Is that the way World Cup works? It's like everybody's in a bracket?
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine the World Cup, except it's with photography. So everyone's in their own category. There's a wedding category and an infants category and a maternity category and a wildlife category. So the first thing you do is you bracket them there, and you bring down till you get the very best image in the category. And then you have all the categories go head to head until you get the very best image overall. And the audience can see it and watch it live. You can watch it online. The audience can vote. Their votes don't go towards the winner, but still you get to see who the audience likes and who the audience doesn't like. It's a great night of fun. Well, it's 2 days of fun, really. But it concludes with a big night and me in a tuxedo and we get to crown the winner, and it's very emotional, and it's just a fantastic event.
Yeah, I love the whole thing. I love the whole audience voting on an app, and you can see it. And interestingly, it didn't necessarily always tally with what the judges were saying.
No. Well, you would expect it because you would think, well, maybe that guy's got a lot of friends in the audience, right? But last night, we're talking about a crowd with maybe 1,000 people in it. You don't have that many friends.
No.
So there were a couple of times last night where the judges would pick an image and maybe 80% of the audience had picked the other image. And then you just wonder, what's that about? Because first of all, there's a couple of things. Trained judges are a little bit different than people who aren't trained. And secondly, the judges are looking at the image on calibrated monitors, whereas you're looking at the image on just a big screen. So maybe the highlights look a little blown out, or maybe the darks are a little crunchy, or maybe I've just been walking around looking at the images today on the big monitors where we have them displayed. and seeing a lot in those images that I never saw when I was actually hosting the competition.
Yeah.
So I sometimes chalk a little bit of it up to that the judges are really, they're in Technicolor, and you're kind of watching it on an old TV set out there. So I think, but maybe not. I mean, art is subjective.
Yeah.
So it's a great new wrinkle to the competition that we now can see. Instead of just hearing people groan or cheer, we can see the numbers. 80% of the audience thinks you're wrong.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and the ease of use as well with the phone app, it was superb. But this was the first time you've actually done the competition like that in comparison to the past.
This was the second time.
Oh, was it?
Last year was the first time. This year was the second time. And we were talking the other day. I think it'll probably take 5 years before we really dial everything in, because it's very much a work in progress. And there's nothing is off the table. I say we, but no. This whole thing was put together by Rich Newell and the rest of his staff at PPA. They're the ones who came up with the idea of the bracket system, the head-to-head, the cash prizes. They came up with all that. Once they had come up with all that and had really started working on it, then they came to me and they asked me to host. Now, if you ask me to get involved with something, you're not going to be able to keep me off the phone. I've been on the podcast twice. You've asked me one question, and 30 minutes later, you get to ask a second question. So I was just constantly, Rich, what about this? Rich, what about this? So luckily for me, he's been so kind as to let me have input too, which makes me feel like I got a little ownership. So I'll say we, but really, I don't ever want to suggest that I was the one who built this. I was not. It was the people at PPA. And this is funny, when he called me and he told me all about it, he said, here's what we want to do. And he laid it all out. And I go, well, man, this just pisses me off. He goes, why? I said, because this is so great. I really wish I could have been in on the ground floor and helped build this, because I would like to have some ownership of this thing, because you've done a great job here. So this is our second year, but every year it changes. This year, it's like, okay, before we do this, talk to this person or talk to that person. This year we added a man on the street. We had a reporter in the audience, and we would kick out to him, and he would be in the audience and interview people in the audience. We didn't do that last year. And between now and next year, we'll come up with new things to do, and we'll just keep trying stuff and seeing what the crowd likes until we finally, hopefully, I would think 5 years, come up with a formula and we're able to say, that's it, lock it in.
Yeah, see, that's what I love. It's always innovating, always trying to do something new, and never, just relying on the way it's been done for, I'd say, hundreds of years.
Well, one of the things we have a category that changes every year. Like this year, maternity was a category that wasn't in last year. Because what happens is you have some categories, you want to have this category, but you just don't get enough participation. But if you have it once every 2 or 3 years, people save up their images or whatever. And so you can try and put in new things. We're talking maybe about splitting a couple of categories, because we have a couple of categories that get so many entries. And you're like, well, that's so many entries. And I said to Rich the other day, I said, like in the wildlife category, what do you see a lot of? And he said, flowers. I said, great. Well, why don't you next year just have a flower category? And you can put all the flowers in that category. And then, still have your wildlife over here. And now they don't have to compete against each other.
Birds on sticks. That should be its own category.
Sticks. That's the other one. It was birds and flowers and wildlife. And I said, and in landscape, you could probably break out mountains into its own category.
Yeah. Mountains and beaches, separate.
Mountains and beaches are a separate category. And if we were getting... if we were getting 500 images in the high school senior category, suddenly there'd be a high school senior boy and a high school senior girl category. Because it's hard to come up with 16 categories of photography, and each one of them is going to get hundreds of entries. That's hard. So that's a big struggle.
It's fantastic to see how innovative the competition is here. I think, I often think that competitions in the UK in particular, could maybe take a leaf out of this book. So it's always worth traveling to other exhibitions, other shows like this one, just to get some new inspiration, whether that's on the competition side, whether it's on, the education side. It's totally worth it. Booray, I've enjoyed my stay over here tremendously. Thank you so much for talking to me. And I would love to explore the whole topic of competition and photo competitions, maybe in a separate episode with you altogether.
Well, that, first of all, you can explore anything with me. With competition, yes. Because let me tell you, as a member of PPA, for years, I was the fly in the ointment. I was the guy that people were like, you're at the convention and you see Booray over there and he's doing this, and you're like, stay away from Booray because he's on a ramp. because Bouray's ranting about competition. I ranted about the PPA's competition for years until they finally changed it. I don't want to say they changed it because of me, but certainly I was in there doing my share of yelling, and they changed it, and they changed it around a little bit, and then they made the change that they made now when IPC came along. I didn't have anything to do with that, but if you don't like something, talk about it, discuss it, and figure out what's better, come up with a better idea, and then pitch it. And I do a lot of that.
Fantastic. Booray, thank you so much. Speak to you soon, man.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.